While I wouldn't say that films like The Invisible Man are my favorite films of all time, they are right now providing for me some of my favorite theater-going experiences. There is just something honestly so relieving about walking into a film where that film doesn't need to be something for me and it doesn't need to live up to my impossibly high expectations. It can just be what it is, and I can open my arms and embrace whatever the filmmaker wants to dish up to me, instead of walking in with just this feeling of dread that they won't live up to or make exactly what I need them to for this next chapter in some sort of beloved franchise. Now, of course, I'm not going to spend this entire review praising this film because it was able to allow me to walk into it relaxed and open, because when the film actually began, I was reminded I really enjoy films that provide for me something new. Now, yes, of course, this is an adaptation, but a very different one from the previous iterations. The characters were new, the style of filmmaking fresh, and all of them proved to be captivating, appropriately terrifying, and even in moments, genuinely moving. This film really was a first-rate horror thriller. Over and over again, it would trade out cheap gimmicks and jump scares for genuine chills and suspense. Writer-director Leigh Whannell, just his composition and camera movement were all so on point. Time and again, he would cut to or slowly pan to these empty frames, or just compose an image in such a way that would draw our eyes to the blank spot on the screen, getting our minds to, along with the main character, just start to race and ask, is he there? Is he there right now? And will he jump out and attack me, or just sit and watch? While The Invisible Man didn't have the type of soundtrack that I personally would put on in the background and read a book to, it was perfect for this film, pairing so wonderfully with its overall style and tone. Quite interestingly, it was able to evoke somehow anyways this feeling of emptiness that could quite quickly be filled with terror and violence. Now, for those of you that have watched the trailer for this film, which I myself wasn't all that impressed by when I first watched it, I should say that you probably will get the impression from it that this is only going to be a horror thriller. And now that I've seen the film, though, I would definitely want to tell you that that is just not the case. This film is so much more than that. Now, while yes, like we've been talking about, it did quite successfully capture all the different trappings of a film in that genre, it was also quite impressively and very delicately, and I would say very successfully, also a really excellent drama about domestic abuse and manipulation and control and misplaced guilt and crippling fear. And that for me was why this film's slower pace just worked so incredibly well. This film actually had something kind of deep to say, and it took the time to say it. And completely integral to that was Elisabeth Moss in the lead role. She was just on fire. I mean, this was her film, and she absolutely sunk her teeth into it. From the beginning to the end, I believed her and her journey because of that actress's conviction in the lead role. And we'll just talk in a little bit more about some of these specific pacing things that Whannell did quite brilliantly. But overall, the pace that he chose and the structure that he chose and the way that he chose to mix things up as to keep things from becoming one-noted or predictable wouldn't have worked half as well had he not had as brilliant of a performer in that lead role as Moss. Again, from the very first scene, which itself was a masterclass in suspense, the actress just powerfully emoted so many nuanced emotions. Fear, dread, hope, guilt, and sometimes all in a single look. It's worth mentioning, too, that I really did like the way that the filmmakers handled the villain in this film. Now, in a different story, I may have complained that he was too one-dimensional or really lacked any sort of depth or dimension of any kind in the film. But here, that lack was actually used for a very specific reason. This was Moss's character's story, and so we saw everything from her perspective. And the filmmakers wanted us to ask, okay, just based upon what she sees, hears, and feels, do we still believe her story? Like I mentioned a moment ago, something else that was so expertly handled in this film was just its pacing and structure. But not just its pacing and structure in individual scenes, but on the film as a whole. Writer-director Leigh Whannell totally proved that he understood this genre and what we, his audience, have come to expect from it. And as such, he consequently avoided a lot of the unfortunate pitfalls that people will fall into in stories like this. So, for example, he knew that he could only have for so long his lead character running around begging people to believe her that her boyfriend has come back and made some sort of invisibility suit, and have those people not believe her and call her crazy. And so, he didn't camp there that long. He constantly switched up the main character's tactics to get to her objective. And this kept me engaged and on my toes from start to finish. And there were more than a couple of genuinely shocking moments that I just did not see coming at all. Now, while I wasn't the hugest fan of the script for Leigh Whannell's previous film, Upgrade, I did really like the visual styling, just tons of very creative camera work and stellar editing, and he continued to prove on The Invisible Man that he does have a uniquely cinematic eye. Now, while yes, he did make us wait, and wait, and wait for the antagonist to reveal himself and to demonstrate his power, and didn't for the longest time give us any action sequences, when he finally did, he made sure that wait was worth it. He just pulled off a ton of visual trickery that I honestly couldn't tell you exactly how it was accomplished. For example, in the fight scenes between Elisabeth Moss's character and her invisible abusive boyfriend, I couldn't tell when she was being yanked around by a wire or pushed and pulled by a guy in a blue screen suit. And those are often the moments that most engage me as a viewer, because if I can't immediately figure out what the trick is and how it's being accomplished, I will oftentimes just forget about that and enjoy the film and engage in it all the more. Which actually goes back to why I really right now am enjoying films of this size and scale. Because I know on a film like this, the budget is so small, they're not able to accomplish every one of these tricks using CGI. So I'm just left to wonder, engage, and enjoy. I suppose if there was one thing that Whannell proved he isn't brilliant at writing and directing, it's just that cheeky banter between characters. There were a number of moments where characters were supposed to be having these sweet moments or these comedic moments, and they kind of just felt a little bit forced and contrived. But that really is nitpicking. Overall, I really did enjoy this film a lot. I'm very excited to see where Leigh Whannell goes next. I definitely think he's on the fast track to directing some larger blockbusters. Though at the same time, hopefully not too quickly, because again, I do like films of this scale where things feel that much more fresh and they just carry that much less baggage. Anyways, for all these reasons, I will give the film a 4 out of 5 and a heart. I would still love to know what you guys thought of the film though, so definitely comment below and let me know. And finally, please do subscribe. I'm going to continue to review films and television on this channel, and I would love for you to stay up to date on all of those things. But for now, I'm Chris Hartwell. This is The Heartbeat. Thank you for joining me.